Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Please sing alongside. Narayanam Namaskrityam Naram Chaiva Narottamam Devim Saraswatim Vyasam Tatho Jayam Udhirayet Shunvatam Swakatha Krishna Punya Shravana Kirtana Hidayantasto Bhadrani Vidhunoti Suhritsatam Nashtaprayeshva Bhadreshu Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya Bhagavati Uttama Shloke Bhaktir Bhavati Naishtiki Grantraj Srimad Bhagavatam Ki Jai. We are reading Canto 1, Chapter 15, verse 50, and we will read the translation for 51 and close out the chapter. Draupadi cha tadangyaya patinam anapekshatam vasudeve bhagavati hi ekantamatir apatam Draupadi cha tadagnaya patinam anapekshatam vasudeve bhagavati hi ekantamatirapatam Draupadi cha tadagnaya patinam anapekshatam vasudeve bhagavati hi ekantamatirapatam. Would like to chant.
Draupadi cha tadagnaya
patinam anapekshatam vasudeve bhagavati ekantamatirapatam. Word to word translation and purport by His Divine Grace Shri A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada. Srila Prabhupada ki Jai. Draupadi, the wife of the Pandavas. Cha, and. Tada, at that time. Agnyaya, knowing Lord Sri Krishna fully well. Patinam, of the husbands. Anapekshatam, who did not care for her. Vasudeve, unto Lord Vasudev, Sri Krishna. Sri Krishna. Bhagavati, the personality of Godhead. He, exactly. Eka anta, absolutely. Matihi, concentration. Apa, got. Tam, him, the Lord. Translation. Draupadi also saw that her husbands, without caring for her, were leaving home. She knew well about Lord Vasudev, Krishna, the personality of Godhead. Both she and Subhadra became absorbed in thoughts of Krishna and attained the same results as their husbands. Purport. When flying an airplane, one cannot take care of other planes. Everyone has to take care of his own plane, and if there is any danger, no other plane can help another in that condition. Similarly, at the end of life, when one has to go back home, back to Godhead, everyone has to take care of himself without help rendered by another. The help is, however, offered on the ground before flying in space. Similarly, the spiritual master, the father, the mother, the relatives, the husbands, and others can all render help during one's lifetime. But while crossing the sea, one has to take care of himself and utilize the instructions formerly received. Draupadi had 5 husbands, and no one asked Draupadi to come. Draupadi had to take care of herself without waiting for her great husbands. And because she was already trained, she at once took to concentration upon the lotus feet of Lord Vasudeva, Krishna, the personality of Godhead. The wives also got the same result as their husbands in the same manner. That is to say, without changing their bodies, they reached the destination of Godhead. Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur suggests that both Draupadi and Subhadra, although her name is not mentioned herein, got the same result. None of them had to quit the body. Om Ajnanatimirandasya Jnananjanashalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha नमां विष्णुपादाय कृष्णपृष्ठाय भूतले श्रीमते भक्तिवेदान्त स्वामिनिति नामिने नमस्ते सारस्वते देवे गौरवाणी प्रचारिणे निर्विशेष शून्यवादी पाश्चात्य देशतारिणे जय श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधर श्रीवासादि गौर भक्त वृंद हरे कृष्णा 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 हरे 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 राम 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 हरे हरे. Hare Krishna, dear devotees. Thank you very much for joining today's class. It is said that if there is no speaker for the Bhagavatam, another speaker can be arranged. If there is no venue or location for Bhagavatam, another venue can be arranged. But if there is no audience in the Bhagavatam class, then nothing can be done. So thank you very much for your audience in today's class. Please offer a prayer that may the right words at the right time, may I speak the right words at the right time in the glorification of Srimad Bhagavatam. And if there is anything that you can take away from this class, it would be my greatest pleasure. Thank you, dear devotees. In today's verse, we will also, verse 51 is just continuation. So the translation is, the subject of the departure of the sons of Pandu. Oh, the subject of the departure of the sons of Pandu for the ultimate goal of life back to Godhead is fully auspicious and is perfectly pure. Therefore, anyone who hears this narration with devotional faith certainly gains the devotional service of the Lord, the highest perfection of life. Purport. Srimad Bhagavatam is a narration about the personality of Godhead and the devotees of the Lord, like the Pandavas. The narration of the personality of Godhead and its devotees is absolute in itself, and thus to hear it with a devotional attitude is to associate with the Lord and constant companions of the Lord. By the process of hearing Srimad Bhagavatam, one can attain the highest perfection of life, namely going back home, back to Godhead, without failure. That last qualification, without failure, is our only hope. That even if we are not perfect in our own circumstance, as Jesh Prabhu was asking the other day, without failure is our only hope. We see here that Prabhupada is talking about Mother Draupadi also getting the same final result as her husband's. It is said that in the Grihastha ashram, the husband receives 50% of the sinful reactions of the sins committed by the wife, and the wife gets 50% of the pious deeds performed by the husband. So the wife and the husband, they're known as Ardha Angani for each other. So for the Grihastha male, the wife is the Grihini and she's Ardha Angani, she's 50%. We call the wife or the spouse as the better half. So the Shastras say that it may seem a little unfair that only the pious activities of the husband, 50% of that goes to the wife and 50% of the sinful activities go to the husband. But that is how it is, because the husband has generally takes the role of the spiritual leader and helps lead the wife to the ultimate goal. And as a result, the wife serves the husband. And we see the same happening here in the case of the queen of Panchala or Panchali, Mother Draupadi. And Srila Vishal Chakravarti Thakur also clarifies and says that Draupadi is also an eternal associate of the Lord, and also talks about Mother Subhadra also attaining the same, and going back to the eternal Nitya Lila, pastimes of the Lord. So here Prabhupada makes a very important statement, and it's a very good analogy as well about flying our own aeroplanes, because generally the notion, especially in ISKCON, is we beg our seniors that we will just hold on to your dhoti, you go wherever you want, we'll just follow you. That's the whole mood generally, that we'll catch hold of your dhoti and that's all is required. And Prabhupada also says that he has made a negotiation with Lord Krishna that in the age of Kali, if someone is chanting 16 rounds sincerely, following the 4 regulative principles, and trying their best to remember the pastimes of Lord Hari and absorbing themselves in the Sankirtan movement, they will be delivered. So there's a promise Prabhupada has given us. And the next purport, he says, one who does this will go back home, back to Godhead without failure. So our hope and our prayer is that we achieve that, at least the minimum bar. If we go above it, great. But at least if we hit the minimum bar, then the without failure is our only savior. And I want to give an analogy that Nirantar Prabhu had given in one class about how Olympians prepare for their for the final day. That's their game, and we will draw a parallel between how our spiritual lives um, mirror the same, in the sense Prabhupada says here very clearly that the help is offered on the ground before flying in space. And that's the same, right? The training happens behind closed doors. And there's this very interesting, it may seem a little passionate, but there's a very beautiful commercial from the company called Under Armour. They have this commercial where Michael Phelps, who's a very celebrated swimmer, Olympian, he's been awarded multiple gold medals. He's the, you could say, brand ambassador for that advertisement. And then in that, they show him practicing a lot. They see that he wants to eat something, but he cannot. He has to eat 10,000 calories a day to sustain the amount of energy he's spending in this pool to practice. And he is almost fed up of eating, but he still has to force feed himself so that he has the sufficient energy to push through the water. And he has no parties. He cannot drink alcohol. There are so many other things that are put. Well, for devotees, none of these may matter. But we're just drawing a parallel. We're seeing that the preparation is likely not very palatable at all times. And Phelps goes through all of these different circumstances. And then in the end, they show him swimming and winning the gold medal. And then a certain, you can say, slogan comes up on the screen. It says, "What you do in the dark puts you in the light." And that's the same for spiritual life as well. What we do in the dark, what we do at the time of Mangalarti, that's what puts us in the light. That's the light of Krishna consciousness. So we can delve a little bit deeper into this analogy as well. We see that our final exam is at the time of death. We also know the question paper has already been leaked. We know that we also know the answer. That's even more interesting, because generally, if a question paper is leaked, the first thing students do is try to go to the smartest student, or right now it's maybe ChatGPT, and go and ask it all the questions and try to memorize the answers so that they can write it in the exam in case there's a question paper leak. But for us, neither the question paper nor the answer is difficult. It's whether we would remember when the exam happens. Oh, actually, our problem is we don't know when the exam will be. We know the answer, we know the question paper, but will we remember that answer when we need it the most is the greatest question. And we see here that Prabhupada is talking about Mother Draupadi already having practice. And we will look a bit into what that practice was. Because this is not the first time Mother Draupadi is not getting the support of her husband. This is actually the second time. So she's already trained in this, in not depending on her very illustrious husbands. Another thing that we see here is crossing the sea, one can take care of himself, utilize the instructions formally received. Draupadi had 5 husbands. Okay. So one thing that is very noteworthy about Mother Draupadi is that she generally she's kind of overshadowed by her very famous husbands and their deeds, and the entire in the entire Mahabharata, except for the 5 diamonds that I mentioned previously, that is Viduraniti, Sanat Sujatiyam, the Vishnu Sahasranamam, the Bhagavad Gita, and then that's 4. Sanat Sujatiyam. Oh, I'm forgetting one thing. Probably, do you remember? Which one? Oh yeah. Oh yeah, of course. The main thing. Yes. Yaksha Prashnam. So these are the, of course, that is the whole class the other day. So these are the 5 diamonds in the Mahabharata. But other than these 5 diamonds in the Mahabharata, everything else is a little sullen. It's a little sobering. It's a little saddening at times. It's mostly politics or gambling or fighting, somebody having differences with others, some cheating, and so many things. So the Mahabharata is filled with all of these. And there's one interesting fact that the Mahabharata is 125,000 verses, but that is only the Mahabharata that was narrated by Vaishampayana to Janmejaya, who's the son of Parikshit Maharaj. But the Devatas, they have a version of Mahabharata which has more than 1 million verses. And there's also a version of Mahabharata that has 3.5 million verses. So for us, the Mahabharata we have, with the amount of detail we have, even with 1 million verses, we are kind of struggling to read the whole thing. In fact, Srimad Bhagavatam has 18,000 verses, and many devotees take a lot of time to go through them, also because of the voluminous work that's available to corroborate everything that the acharyas have mentioned. But there are a lot of parvas in the Mahabharata. The first one is the Adi Parva, similar to Adi Leela. It's the introductory, the beginning. And the second one is known as Sabha Parva. And one interesting Sabha, the assembly, so Sabha Parva. And one interesting point is Shukadeva Goswami has no what you would call as no holds barred. He does not hold back on giving as beautiful, as detailed descriptions of everything, especially of Mother Draupadi. But he says Mother Draupadi, whether she yawns, whether she's just seated, whether she's relaxing, everything is explained in a lot of detail. But and whether she smiles, or the beauty of her smile, everything is mentioned in the Mahabharata. But in the Sabha Parva, there is not one sentence which mentions that Mother Draupadi smiled. The entire Sabha Parva is not just the gambling match, it includes many other things, but it is only in the Sabha Parva that there is no mention of Mother Draupadi being happy. Because there is something that happens in Sabha Parva which you all already know, and we will take a deeper analysis. We'll dig a little bit deeper into what that mood of surrender was that Mother Draupadi showed at that time. So Prabhupada is emphasizing here that we learn during our training phase, right? So there's also this saying that the more you sweat during practice, the less you bleed in war, right? So that is exactly what we are trying to do here. We are trying to sweat. We are trying to, at least in the ashram, we are trying our best to go to Mangalarti and follow the regulative principles and follow the morning program and everything, because we are trying to sweat now, so that when the war comes, we are ready to fight the war. There's this analogy that devotees give about rip currents, because generally devotees are considered some devotees consider themselves to be day weather devotees, in the sense when the weather is great, which means when everything is going well for them, when the paychecks are coming in, when the prasadam is tasty, everything is going, they're happy, and then they have a very easy way to practice devotional service. But the real test comes when there are difficulties. Again, going back to the swimmer analogy, there's thing known as rip currents. The rip currents kind of take one within, and then they generally drown. You could say it's similar to what a whirlpool might be. And if anyone is well, I had to look it up, but if anyone is a good swimmer, you might know that the best way to go through a rip current is to not do anything at all. You will go within, and then you will automatically come out by the way the rip currents are. But most people who drown, what they do is they don't know what to do. So when they get into the rip current, they try to swim, and as a result, they drown. So the analogy to take from that is, when the difficulties come in our life, they're like rip currents. And if we just put our hand up and not do anything and just depend on the Lord and the holy name, that alone is sufficient for us to get through that difficult circumstance. Because it's only in these difficult circumstances that a devotee's real bhakti is tested. Otherwise, everybody would be able to do it. So if it were, there's also many motivation speakers who say, if it were easy, everybody would do it. That's the same thing with devotional service as well. So we see here that Prabhupada is emphasizing that Draupadi had already gone through this certain circumstance when her when her husbands left or were not able to protect her, and that is the pastime in the gambling arena. So we will have a description of what is happening here. So Yudhishthir Maharaj had made a promise that he would follow whatever the elders in the Kuru assembly say to prevent any dissensions. Ironically, it was this his adherence to the words of the Kuru elders which caused them to accept the gambling match. Actually, there's a lot of backstory that many times devotees may not speak about, because it's not directly mentioned in the Bhagavatam. It is that Dhritarashtra was completely against the concept of the gambling match. He did not. He actually told Duryodhana that you need to be happy with what you have. Duryodhana saw that the palace built by Mayadana was very beautiful, and he slipped and fell, as we've heard in the other classes. He thought there was a puddle. He thought there was no puddle, but then he slipped and fell. And then some servant ladies laughed at him, but Mother Draupadi was not even there. She never laughed at him. Actually, devotees say that Draupadi laughed, but the Mahabharata never says anything like that. So some servant ladies laugh at him, and then he is enraged by this, and he's also very jealous about the beautiful palace and the fact that Khandavaprastha has become Indraprastha. So he goes and tries to create some dissensions, and goes to Dhritarashtra and tells, look, Draupadi, Panchali has laughed at me. And then that kind of ignited the spark in Dhritarashtra. He says, how dare she laugh at my son? But even at that time, he was, you could say, stable or sober enough to take counsel from Vidura. And Vidura says, obviously, Vidura would say, this is not a cause for a war. Tell your son, correct your son that he should be happy with what he has. And Dhritarashtra still does that. But the constant back and forth that Draupadi has insulted his son enrages Dhritarashtra, and then he says, okay, call the gambling match. And even during the gambling match, when Yudhishthir was seated there, he said, okay, Duryodhana, why are you not seated here? And then Duryodhana says that I'm in no position to gamble now. I would like my uncle, Shakuni, to come and play. And Yudhishthir clearly says, when the gambling match begins, this is highly improper. Only the person who has something to put on wager, only that person should sit for the bet, not somebody else who does not have anything. So both parties have to put something equivalent. Like if Yudhishthir puts let's say, a necklace made of diamonds, something of equal value should be put on the other side by Duryodhana, and then the game begins. But and at that time, Shakuni is you could say considered a Kuru senior, and his word was also taken. And Shakuni says, "Are you afraid of having a match with me?" And Yudhishthir says, "So be it. You can play the game." But if at that moment Yudhishthir had said, "Let me call my uncle. Let me call my relative. Let me call my uncle's son, Krishna. Let's see if they would have a battle. Then we wouldn't. None of this would have happened." So Yudhishthir is fine with the battle, so with the match, and so he first puts forth a pearl necklace, and Vyasadeva does not hold back on giving the descriptions of the beautiful necklace and what it's worth. And Duryodhana had to put a lot of jewels, like baskets of jewels, to equal the value of that. And then slowly he loses everything. There are about maybe close to 85 or 100 verses that mention each of the items, whether it is 10,000 servants or 1,000 elephants, so many things that Yudhishthir puts forth. And then we come to the unfortunate scene where he has no possessions, and he has to put forth Sahadev, and Sahadev is also lost in the bet. And then he puts Nakula. Nakula is also lost in the bet. Then Yudhishthir is seated as he's first of all, we know from the Yaksha Prashnam that Yudhishthir considered all of his brothers equal. Although Nakula Sahadev were sons of Madri, he considered them as his own brothers. And he was in deep pain at that time that Nakula and Sahadev were lost. But Nakula and Sahadev were happy that the Yudhishthir thought them as being worthy enough to be put on bet. And they were proud that Yudhishthir wanted us. He put us on bet. And we were lost. We are servants now. But that is okay. Yudhishthir believes in us. So they were proud of that. And then Yudhishthir is heartbroken that both Nakula and Sahadev are gone. His own mother, Madri, would be displeased by this. And that time, Shakuni starts goading Yudhishthir. He goads and says, you only put Madri's sons on wager. You don't care about them. If you really are the son of Pandu, put Arjuna on the bet. And that's when Yudhishthir gets enraged, and he like howls at Shakuni and puts Arjuna on the bet. And then he loses Arjuna. And then everybody are like shell shocked. They don't know what to do. Because Arjuna, if a kingdom has Arjuna as a servant, you can understand the power of that kingdom. And Arjuna puts down his he doesn't put down his Gandiva, but he puts down his ornaments and everything, and then he quietly, he doesn't say a word, he goes and stands by the side of the servants. And then Duryodhana is like beyond himself with happiness and pleasure. He knows that he can call on Arjuna as his water boy and get him whatever he needs. And Bhimsen is livid. There is nothing that can contain the volcanic eruption of Bhimsen's anger at that time. And then Yudhishthir puts Bhimsen on, and Bhimsen is also lost. And then Duryodhana tells him, okay, we have a new chef in the kitchen. We hire him, go get him all the apron and everything that he needs. And Bhimsen, you could, if you were standing anywhere close to Bhimsen, you could feel the heat coming from his body. And then Bhimsen goes and stands there, full of anger. And then Yudhishthir finally puts himself on the bet, and he is also lost. And then the whole assembly is shell shocked. They do not know what just happened. And Yudhishthir himself is like he's about to go and stand among the servants. At that time, Shakuni says, Yudhishthir, you have one more thing that you have not yet put on the bet. And Yudhishthir says, what is that? And then Mother Draupadi is not present there because she was in a certain period of her menstrual cycle, due to which she would not be allowed to come to the assembly. So she was, it's called Ekavastra Rajaswala. It's, she's in certain period, and then she's covered in a single cloth. As a result, it is not appropriate for her to come in front of the assembly of the elders. As a result, she is placed in, she is in the ladies' avenue, wherever they were in the part of the palace, and she was not to come there. So then, so in a sense, it was out of sight, out of mind. So Yudhishthir never put her on the bet, and he was also intoxicated by the gambling match. Like he was goaded that you need to put Arjuna, you need to put Bhimsen. So he never thought of that, and he never did put it. But because Shakuni, Uncle Shakuni said it, he comes back and then he puts forth. So before he puts forth any bet, you need to describe why that is valuable. And that time Yudhishthir describes the beauty, the purity, the chastity of Draupadi. He says she is only sweet words come from her mouth. She's the first one to rise and the last to take rest. She serves us much more than what she takes care of us more than what she takes care of herself. And she's the pure, she's chaste. And then he also has to give explanations about how beautiful her lips are, how lotus petal like eyes she has, and how slim her waist is. Everything he says all of that, and then he says, "I put forth Draupadi on the as the wager on this bet," and then the whole assembly is like silent, like there's pin drop silence. No one says anything, and then one voice is heard. So Shakuni says, he's very excited because he knows he's going to win it, and he throws the dice. You could hear the dice falling, and then the numbers were there. No one had to say anything because they already knew what had happened. But there was one person who said one sentence, that Dhritarashtra, who cannot see. He asks, has the bet been won? He asks it, and everybody hears it, and everybody knows that, okay, it's done. And then Duryodhana and everybody are leaping with joy that they won Draupadi. And they said, now we have another maid servant among us. And then he tells Pratikraman, Pratikraman is a kind of a Suta class who was like an attendant in the assembly. And he said, Pratikraman, please go bring. The name of the person of Pratikraman is like a role, like a servant. Pratikraman, he would go bring he was asked to go bring Mother Draupadi. So he goes to Mother Draupadi and says, from outside the chamber, he says, Mother Draupadi, you're being asked to come to the assembly. And Draupadi is asking, she knows, everybody knows that she's there in single cloth, that she's not supposed to come. She asks, who's asking me to come? So he says, Duryodhana, King Duryodhana is asking you to come. He does not have any authority over me. I'm not going to come. Why should I come? And then the Pratikraman explains that Yudhishthir put you on bet and you were lost. So you were asked to come and join the servant ladies who were in the assembly. And at that time, she asks him, did Yudhishthir put me on bet first, then himself, or did he lose himself first and then put me? So he asks that question. And the Pratikraman is like, okay, that's a valid question. And he goes back to the assembly and he asks that question. And Duryodhana is like, where's Draupadi? You come by yourself. And then he says, she asked this question. And then immediately Duryodhana walks up to him and slaps him and he falls on the floor. And he tells Dushasan to bring Draupadi. And when Dushasan goes to the ladies' chamber, very shamelessly, he just barges into the door and then he's like, you have to go. Very disrespectfully to Mother Draupadi. You're a servant, you deserve no respect. You need to come to the assembly now. And Draupadi, all the other ladies, they're afraid of Dushasan. I mean, he's like a Planet Fitness built guy and he's coming in. And so they all go to the side and Draupadi is left by herself with a single cloth. And she's like, I am not going to come. You are not my authority. If only Yudhishthir or my other husbands call me, I will come. And so she's holding fort. Like she didn't like squirm away. And then Dushasan holds her hair and pulls her with that. And unfortunately, she does not have sufficient power to withstand that. And so she is kind of dragged through the assembly against her will. And then she's like thrown in front of the assembly, and she's like, Duryodhana, your servant is here, very disrespectfully. And then she offers her prayers. She says, "O Kuru assembly, is this how a chaste woman is supposed to be treated? I am Ekavastra Rajaswala. I'm in this position, like I'm in single cloth." And actually, the blood is strewn all over the floor as well. And it's a very painful situation for anybody who has at least a shred of morality in them to see such a scene. And then what happens is she begs Bhishma Dev, because she knows he's Mahajan. If there's one person who would follow Dharma, it is him. And she asks him, Bhishma Dev, can Yudhishthir put me on wager if he is already lost? And I don't know for what reason, maybe Krishna's arrangement, Bhishma Dev says, the workings of Dharma are very intricate and complicated. So I do not, some parts of the Shastras say you can, some say you belong to the husband, so he can put you on wager. Some say after losing a wager, you cannot put in. I am not exactly equipoised, but I'm lost in this battle of justice. So I do not know. I'm sorry, I'm unable to help you. And then she cries piteously because of all the people, she put all her trust in Bhishma Dev. And then she looks at her husbands. And Bhimsen is both angered and saddened by what has happened here with what Bhishma Dev has done. And because they have been lost and they're servants, they can do nothing. And Bhishma Dev is, Bhimsen is like willing, ready to, because he saw Dushasan pull. Actually, when Dushasan walked past the Pandavas in the assembly, he purposefully said, servant, servant, I'm pulling Draupadi. He purposely tried to goad him. And Bhimsen knows that he's going to break the skull and drink the blood of Dushasan. And Bhimsen is, you could feel the anger, palpable. It's very palpable there. And then Mother Draupadi, now she looks toward Dronacharya. She knows Drupad and Dronacharya don't see eye to eye. But she knows that Dronacharya has seen her as his own daughter and has treated her as, you could say, a sister to Ashwatthama. So she pleads to Dronacharya, please see me as your own daughter. I'm in this position where they're, asking me to be a servant, and I'm asking for justice. Please answer my question, please. And she takes shelter of Dronacharya. And Dronacharya looks down. And it may seem like no one is coming to Draupadi's side, but Krishna is noting down everything. He knows Bhishma Dev said no at that time. So if I ever want to accept anything from Bhishma Dev, it'll only be after every drop of blood from Bhishma Dev has been spilled. Only after that I will accept the prayer. And it actually happens. Krishna accepts the Vishnu Sahasranamam after all the blood that has been, you could say, nourished by the food that has been eaten in Duryodhana's palace. All of that blood has flown out, and then Krishna accepts the Vishnu Sahasranamam from him. And same for Dronacharya. Only after he heard a lie about his son being dead did Dronacharya die. And that's because he said he failed to see Draupadi as his own daughter when she needed it the most. And then Draupadi remembered that in a difficult situation, one must look up to one who's either their acharya or one who's known to be very merciful. And she saw Kripacharya, who was both merciful and an acharya, having the same qualities. And she asks him, and he was unable to respond to her. Kripacharya has also said no, and she looks down, and he looks down as well. And at that time, Vashishta Vakya is remembered. So Vashishta is Vashishta's words were remembered by Mother Draupadi, because she saw Kripacharya. He's also very learned in all the things Vashishta has taught. And she remembers Vashishta Vakya. I think last time when I was giving class around this similar topic, I mentioned that Kripacharya did something, but actually it's Vashishta. Vashishta's Vakya. He says, when somebody is in such a precarious situation where they have nobody, so he says, Vashishta Smartavyo Bhagavan Harihi. He says, only the remembrance of Lord Hari can save you. Basically, it's just one fragment of a sentence. I mean, it's very cinematic to say that Arjuna heard 700 verses, but it took only half a verse for Draupadi to take shelter of the Supreme Lord. But this is where the test is. If Draupadi had still held on to her sari with her teeth and tried her best, that's it. It would have been complete disaster there. her chastity and purity would have been marred by the demoniac forces present in the assembly. And it is at that time when she remembers and she offers her prayer, and it is this prayer that we can also offer from ourselves. So I assume there was only a little bit in the prayer, but actually there's a lot. So I'll not say the full prayer. So first she says Shankha Chakra Gada Padme. So she says, Lord Hari, you have Shankha, you have Chakra, you have Gada, and then she describes what they are. Like Shankha, before every war, you blow the conch shell, and that alone would make everybody else muted. They will know that okay, it's Hari. Let's not mess here. Then Chakra, it's as big as the sun. It can chop off anybody. We see in the case of Amrish Maharaj and how he was protected. And then he says Gada. The Gada was used to kill Madhukaitaba. The Madhukaitaba. It says in the Vishnu Sahasranamam about how the Madhukaitaba demon was killed by the Gada of the Lord. So she says, you have Shankha, Chakra, Gada, and are all of these ornaments, O Supreme Lord Hari, please use it now. I really need it. So it's very similar to how Uttara prayed, right? Pahi Pahi Mahayogin, Deva Deva Jagatpate. And then Nanyam Tvat, Abhayam Pashet. Yatra Mrityu Parasparam. I see death everywhere. Pahi Pahi Mahayogin, Deva Deva Jagatpate. Lord of all lordships. It is only your presence, Abhayam Pashet. Only then can I see without fear. That's what Uttara prays. And the same thing, Draupadi also prays. She also brings in Gajendra. So in Gajendra Stuti, he says, Madrik Prapanna Pashupasha Vimokshanaya. He says, I'm just an animal, but I'm offering prayers, and Lord Hari came. And it's funny because generally Lord Hari comes on Garuda, but the Sri Vaishnava Acharyas comment that at this point, Hari didn't care whether his hair was okay, and then he sat on Garuda and came in his own sweet time. He came faster, and Garuda had to keep up with that. And the same thing for Narsimadev. Narsimadev, generally, when you see Narsimadev, he's like very beautifully combed, and he's standing very regally, and Lakshmi Devi is by his side, and then he comes and gives darshan, right? But he didn't care about anything. He just saw Stambe Sabayam Nam Rigam Na Manusham. He just broke the pillar and came when Prahlad Maharaj pointed towards it. He didn't care whether he was ready, whether he was looking great, whether he was ready to give darshan or not. Immediately he came. So you could say in a way, Draupadi was kind of telling, you came for them, can you please come for me also? So she's kind of glorifying the Lord. You've come for your pure devotees. And then she starts going further lower down. She's telling, treat me like a subject in your own kingdom. Our kingdom, the Indraprastha, has been lost. I have no protectors. Treat me like a Dwarakavasi. I've also come there. Please treat me like your own subject and give protection like how you give protection to your subjects. Okay, even if that's not true, then she goes to the love letter that is given by Rukmini Devi. In that, Rukmini Devi says, Twai Achyuta. She writes it, Twai Achyuta. I'm yours, Achyuta. And then Draupadi. I mean, this all happens in a nanosecond because she's prepared for this exam. And then in the nanosecond, she conveys to Krishna that Chuta means one who gives up. Chuta is one who does not give up. Now, when I need you the most, please don't give me up. That's what she prays to him. And then finally, she says, you are Govinda, you're protector of the cows. Consider me as one of the cows. She says, what? Jnana hina. I have no knowledge. Pashubi samana. I'm as good as the cows that you protect. Please protect me. Consider me as one of those calves and cows and protect. And then she says, you have the eyes of compassion. And then she says, Dwaraka Nilaya Achyuta Govinda Pundari Kaksha Rakshamam Sharanagatam. And then she puts her hand in like this. We see the painting that's next to the DT hall, below the donation thing. And then she puts her hand in the air. And then she says, and then the Mahabharata says, Krishna tada akrosha ananyanatha. So Krishna is like our Krishna, Yashodanandan Krishna. Krishna is Mother Draupadi because she also had a bluish black complexion like Achyuta. And then she offers the prayer. So she says, Govinda Dwarakavasim Krishna Gopi Janapriya Kaurave Paribhutamam Kim na Janasi Keshava He Nath Ramanath Prajanatati Nashana Kairava Arnava Bhagna Mam Udarasva Janardana Krishna Krishna Mahayogin Vishwatvan Vishabhavana Prapannam Pahi Govinda Kuru Madhe Vasidatim. So she calls out to Krishna. She says, Krishna, can't you see I'm Kuru Madhe Vasidatim? I'm drowning in this assembly of Kurus who are asat, who have no intention of following the path of justice. Then Krishna Krishna Mahayogin, same as what Mother Uttara says. she says, Krishna Krishna Maha Deva Deva Jagatpate, right? So same is actually, you could say Uttara tried to just copy what Mother Draupadi said, and it worked both times. So it is proof that it works. So Govinda Dwarkavasim Krishna Gopi Janapriya Kauravai Paribhutamam Kim na Janaji Keshava. Don't you know? Krishna, don't you know? You know fully well that I'm struggling here. I only need you to help me. Then she says, Vrajanath, Ramanath, Vrajanatharti Nashanam. You're the killer of all the demons. You're Nath. You're the Gopi Janapriya. You're the Nath. You're the leader of all the gopis. You're the leader of all the Vrishnis. You're the leader of all the Rama, like all the ladies who take shelter of you and the ones who give you pleasure. Ramanath Vajanadati Nashnam, Kairavarnam Bhagnamam, Udarasva Janardhana, you're Janardhan. And then when she did that, did Krishna come? I don't think so. So the Acharyas say Krishna Naam came in the form of Vastra Sharira, Keshava Dhrita, Vastra Sharira, Jai Jagadisha Hari. So what the Acharyas say is Krishna took the women have this Mangal Sutra, which that shows that they were married to someone. So he took the Mangal Sutra threads from all the wives of the 100 Kauravas, and he knit a sari, and then that sari came to protect Mother Draupadi. And Dushasan, like I said, Planet Fitness bodybuilder, he's trying to pull and pull and pull, and then the unlimited Ananta sari of that's created by Krishna comes to protect. And then he's pulling and pulling, and then there's a mountain of sari, and Duryodhana spits at Dushasana. You couldn't even remove the sari from a woman, your waist, and then he spits at Dushasan, and Dushasan is very tired and he falls. And then everybody present in the assembly, they see what has happened. They know that the Lord has come to protect. And then that is when Bhimsen stands up. He comes in front, and he declares boldly. He tells Dushasan, "I'm going to break your skull and drink your blood." And then now Draupadi has the power. She herself says, "I'm never gonna comb my hair until it has been drenched by your blood, Dushasan." And then everybody in the whole assembly kind of gang up on Dushasan. They start flying curses at Dushasan for trying to disrobe such a pure and chaste lady who has the Supreme Lord as her own protector. And then everybody curse Dushasan. And Dushasan is already tired. So he's fallen down. And then what is even another thing, I probably missed it. A couple of things I missed in this saying was Vikarna was the one person other than Vidura who stood up for Mother Draupadi. Vikarna stood up and he told everybody that it is improper for Yudhishthir to put Draupadi on the wager because she's equally the wife of all the 5 Pandavas, and for sure the other 4 Pandavas were lost. So there was no way Yudhishthir could by himself alone put Draupadi on the wager. So that was improper. So Vikarna was the only one. And that's why we see in the Bhagavad Gita first chapter, Vikarna was not known to be such a great warrior. But still, Duryodhana tells Vikarna's name in one of the verse of the first chapter. It was only because Duryodhana thought there was at least one person in the Kuru assembly who was following Dharma, and maybe he might come in use in the war. And so he tells Vikarna's name there. So, and everybody, and it is at that time that Dhritarashtra tells that, Vidura tells that everybody, see, Vikarna is the one person who has made his decision. Who else are in agreement with him? And everybody else raise their hands. And at that time, Dhritarashtra feels that, okay, everything is going out of control. And then he comes to Draupadi and kind of offhanded way, he says, okay, we'll give you back everything. You please go. Please forget whatever happened. As though that was so easy to do. And then the Pandavas are given all of their clothes and then they're asked to leave. And as they step out of the palace, everybody knows, okay, we are not just going to go quietly. And Draupadi says, what is this? They're just giving it to us as though we are beggars. We don't want all of this. We will win it back. And then they go back and have the second gambling match. And then they lose that and then they know they're going to lose, but they're willing to go to the forest, spend the 12 plus 1 years and get it. But you see the training that has happened already. So Draupadi has received the darshan of the Supreme Lord. She's received the protection of the Supreme Lord when she needed it the most. So she's very capable of flying her own airplane. She might not be a pilot, but she knows how to fly it now. So that's exactly what Prabhupada wanted to convey in this verse. So Draupadi, so the translation is Draupadi also saw that her husbands, without caring for her, were leaving home. So this does not mean that they kind of what do you say didn't like her or something like that. They knew that now it's time to fly our own airplanes, and they took to their own practice. If you wish to follow me, you can follow me. The same thing that Lord Ram did. It was only Lord Ram who got the the thing to go on exile. No, nobody else. But Mother Sita was like, I will never leave you, Bhagavan. And then she came with him. And Lakshmana is like a servant, and he would never leave the side of Lord Ram. So he came along. So nobody asked them to come. And it's the same thing is happening here. So Yudhishthir was like, okay, it's time for me to leave, and he left. And the other brothers were like, okay, it's time for me also to leave, and then they left. And same for Draupadi, she also accompanied. And I said, as I said in the previous class, the five of them go to the Himalayas, and then we know what happens after that. So yeah, we are over time, and this is what the subject of the departure of the sons of Pandu for the ultimate goal of life, back to Godhead, is fully auspicious and perfectly pure. Therefore, anyone who hears this narration with devotional faith certainly gains the devotional service of the Lord, the highest perfection of life. With that, I would like to stop here. I live to be corrected. If there's any corrections, please let me know. If you have any small takeaway from this class, then please let me know, and that'll be great pleasure for me. Thank you, dear devotees. Hare Krishna.
So nicely done, bro. Thank you for bringing us all these backstories which are not mentioned in the Bhagavatam. It's very nice to know from Mahabharata. So, how do we reconcile this part where Mahabharata says that they all went to Himalayas? Here, Srimad Bhagavatam doesn't have the detail, but they are mentioning that the Pandavas they just left without caring for Draupadi, and Draupadi achieved the same destination as her husband. So it doesn't mention that she went along with them or they went to Himalayas. Maybe it is mentioned about Yudhishthir. He went to the north.
Yes.
Yudhishthir, for him it is mentioned, but about his brothers and Draupadi, sure. How do we reconcile this?
That's actually a very good question, Prabhu. I actually do not have an answer to that, because you would say the Srimad Bhagavatam, at least in the hierarchy of proofs that are accepted as Shabda Praman, you would put the Puranas above the Itihasas. You would similarly you would put in the hierarchy of proofs, you would put Srimad Bhagavatam above the Mahabharata. So it's I honestly I do not know, Prabhu, but I'm willing to look into it. You're right, because here it says that here it does well. In a way, it does not exactly say she did not go as well. So, but that's a strong, weak argument, right? I would not like to give an incorrect answer, so I will look into it. That's a very good question, actually. There may be many times. I think the last time you had asked the same question. I think with the similar intent, like you had asked about whether they went back to Vaikuntha or not, right? Because Mahabharata might say something, Srimad Bhagavatam might argue in a certain way. So I honestly do not know, bro. I'll have to look into it. Sorry, bro.
We can check with somebody who has more knowledge on this.
Maybe.
He's coming. You can check with him.
Okay. Yes, that's true.
Or you can write to him.
Actually, even in the Mahabharata characters, he does not mention it. So he doesn't mention that.
Or anybody else that you might.
One more thing that's possible is there is this Kalpa Bhed. So some versions of the Ramayana have some, others do not. Maybe the version that we have of the Mahabharata, that might be of a different Kalpa, where they mention they go out on this. Generally, what happens is they have many versions of different Kalpas. Then they have this, they get all of the versions together, and then they see what is the overlap, and that is considered as a certain version. I forget the name, but they see only whatever is present in all of them, and that is the version that is accepted. I think even Bhakti Vikas Maharaj, when he was writing the Ramayana, he found many different versions. Like he's generally from preaches in the South India region, right? So he found many versions of of the Ramayana, and then Maharaj himself says it's called a critical edition. So critical edition of a book is when you get all the different versions, and then the overlap of all of them means that is true. The others might have been lost in translation or something like that, so they are kind of left out. So if we do that critical analysis, maybe this part might not be mentioned, but in Purna Pragna Prabhu's book, which is a translated version of the Mahabharata, it was mentioned. So that is what I was mentioning. Thank you, Prabhu.
Thank you, Prabhu.
Thank you, Prabhu.
All this success class. I was just reflecting on the idea that, like, I feel like in this assembly, everyone was trying to find an excuse as to why this is, taking Draupadi into assembly was justified, right? Like, obviously it's incorrect. I think, like, if we all look at the situation, it's clearly incorrect. But I was just thinking the people back then, they were so dharmic that they had to set up some kind of system for which this would be allowed. Like they had to, say they had to set up the gambling match. They had to bring in the, Uncle Shakuni, and then they had to, like, even this. It was a gray area, right? Dhritarashtra. I'm sorry. Bhishma Dev didn't know. He said it's a gray area whether or not she could be off. So I was just reflecting, like, nowadays we don't have even that. People just do whatever they want. But at least back then there was some kind of, you know, um, way they were trying to rationalize it. Obviously, the rationalization was incorrect. The attempt to do this was incorrect, but there was some kind of rationalization. So I was just thinking, like, as devotees, we should also be very careful to not try to rationalize our own sense gratification. Like sometimes, when we take prasadam, we might say, oh, it's prasadam, let take more, but that we see that's still atyahar, that is incorrect. Or if we, like a few days ago, we were listening to class Kartikeya, Prabhu was giving class, right? Like some Mataji is there and she needs help, or she's singing nicely, and you might think that, oh, it is my duty to appreciate this person, but there's a hidden motive, right? So same way here, we might give this argument that, yes, Draupadi was won over by Duryodhana. Duryodhana can do whatever he wants because she is a maidservant now. So we might give this kind of argument that yes, it is correct, but we must understand, what is the true intention behind these actions, and that's what matters the most, because Krishna cares mostly about the intention. That's what he's looking for. He doesn't care so much about the action or the result. The intention is very important. So I was just like thinking about that. We should be very careful that our intention is pure and not try to overshadow it with these dharmic, seemingly dharmic activities. Yeah. So
that's the same with the gopis, right? Their intention is to please Krishna, and they do whatever activities they are. They're misunderstood by others. Actually, one more thing is about Bhishma Dev. He had sworn his allegiance to whoever's on the throne, and that is why he could not, give it up. So Krishna knows that, but yeah, that's how it happens, right? He knew fully well that it's incorrect, and Dronacharya knew that Ashwatthama is receiving whatever benefits he is because he's in the part of the palace. That's why he said everybody knows that it was incorrect, but Krishna wanted to see at this time who's the one who is willing to follow along. Somehow Vikarna was, Vidura was, but others were too afraid to do so, right? So okay, bro, let's stop here. Hare Krishna. Vanchakalpatarubhyascha kripa sindhubhyach patitanam pavanebhyo vaishnavebhyo namo namaha. Nantakoti Vaishnavrinda ki jai. Prabhupada ki jai.